Hello everyone and welcome back to Codekru. So in today's video, we want to discuss how we can retry the failed test cases in testng. But before discussing the implementation, we want to focus upon why do we even need to retry a failed test case in the first place. Now the main reason would be the flakiness of the test cases. Now what is a flaky test case? A flaky test case is the one that gives inconsistent results, meaning sometimes it will fail and sometimes it will pass even though there won't be any code changes at the test level or at the code level actually. But by retrying the test case, we can reduce the impact of flakiness. So overall the number of flaky tests will be reduced. So in a way it will provide more consistent and reliable results. So that is one of the main reason we want to retry our test cases. So let's now discuss the actual implementation on how we can retry a failed test case in testng. There are majorly two ways to achieve it in testng. One way is to use the testng-failed.xml file and second is to use a RetryAnalyzer. We will discuss both of them one by one. So let's start with the testng-failed.xml file approach. So let's consider this class where we have three test cases. I have deliberately marked two of them as failed. So test1 and test3 should be marked as failed after running Codekru test1 class, and only test2 should be marked as passed. So let's run this class. You see, test 1 and test 3 have been marked as failed and only test 2 is actually passing. But now my testng failed XML file should have been created by now, right? Mentioning test 1 and test 3. So where is that file? So that file is actually created under the test output folder. So if you go under the test output folder, you will see a testng failed XML file. But what if you don't see this test output folder altogether? Now that can be enabled by going into this setting, go to the edit configurations, click on listeners and select this option if it is not selected yet. Click on apply and click on OK. After that, if you rerun the XML file, you should see a test output folder in your project directory. Okay, now that this approach might be different for different editors. I am using IntelliJ right now, so I have just shown you how to enable it for IntelliJ, but please do it for your own editor as well. So let's move on and see the content of testng failed XML. You see both test1 and test3 have been included. So if I run this XML file, it will run only test1 and test3 test case. So this is how we can retry our test cases using testng failed XML file. Now let's discuss one more scenario related to testng failed XML file. For that, let's move to the Codekru test1 class. Here, add test annotation provides one attribute which is depends on methods, using which we can say whether test1 is dependent upon any other method or not. Okay, so let's say test1 depends upon test2. Now test2 is marked as passed whereas test1 is failing. So if I rerun the test1 class, you can see again, right, test 1 test 3 is failing and only test 2 is marked as passed. But let's see the contents of testng failed XML file. Here you can see test 2 is also included. Why? Because test 1 is actually dependent upon test 2. So that's why test 2 will also be included in the testng failed XML file. So this was the kind of edge case that we wanted to talk with you, so that you have full knowledge of testng failed XML file and how to use it effectively. So with that said, I think we are done with this approach. So you can easily use this approach to run the failed test cases. But this approach required one extra step where you would need to actually rerun the XML file, right? Or we can say you have to run a new file which is testng failed XML file. But what if you don't want that? What if you want the test cases to be auto retried once it fails, right? And that is what we can achieve using RetryAnalyzer. Using RetryAnalyzer, we can actually retry our test case as soon as it fails. So let's look at that approach. So how we can implement RetryAnalyzer in our code? So first we have to make a class that implements this interface, and then we have to introduce RetryAnalyzer attribute in our test case. So let's do that. So let's make a class. Maybe let's make a class here and we will name our class Retry. This Retry class will implement one interface which is iRetryAnalyzer. This interface provides one method, which is retry method, which we will implement. Now for this, we will keep two counter. One counter is to see how many times the test case has already been retried, and second is how many times we actually want to retry it. So let's say we want to retry 2 times. So we will say if counter is less than retry count, then we will send true, as we want to retry, and we will also increment the counter. Okay, but what if the counter is equal to the retry count? In that case, we don't want to actually retry our test cases anymore, because we have exhausted our retry count. So this simple code will actually retry your test cases. Okay, now the only remaining part is to use this retry class in our test cases. Now how we can do so? Let's go to a test case. Let's remove this part. Now add test annotation provides one attribute, which is RetryAnalyzer attribute. Here we will mention the name of the class where we have implemented the iRetryAnalyzer interface. So that class is codekru.retry.class, right? So now if I run the XML file once again, you will see that this test case will be retried 2 more times. Okay, so let's do that. Testng-XML file, rerun this. Now you see this 2 coming here, that means the test 1 was retried 2 times. And if I scroll down in the console, you see that there were overall 5 runs and there were 2 retries. So this is how we can easily retry our test cases using RetryAnalyzer, which required no extra execution of an XML file, right? But what if I want this for all my test cases within a class? For that, you can move this thing to class level. We can remove the test level from here, and let's run the XML file once again. You see, test 1 and test 3 were both retried 2 times, and if I scroll down, you see there were 4 retries. So this is how you can also use RetryAnalyzer at class level. But now, what if you say that I want to use this, but for every test case in my test suite? So how is this possible? For that, we would somehow need to add RetryAnalyzer to every test case. So how we can do so? This can be easily achieved using annotation transformer. Using that, we can manipulate the annotations and add RetryAnalyzer on the fly. So if I go back to the article, and we will put this article link in the description as well, so you can also get the code that we are writing. So we will just copy this code and paste it in our code that we are writing here, right? So let's make a new class, annotation transformer, and paste this code here. Okay, what this code is doing is setting the RetryAnalyzer and passing the name of the class. Now this class is Codekru dot retry dot class for us, right? So now I just have to add this annotation transformer in our XML file. And how we can do so? We can do so by using it as a listener, and add a new listener. Now pass the name of the class here. So what is the name of the class? Codekru dot annotation transformer. So we will use class name as Codekru dot annotation transformer. Now we can just remove this from here and put maybe add test at method level or whatever. You can also put this at class level. Okay, now just run the XML file once again. You see, test 1 and test 3 was retried 2 times, and if I scroll down, you can see the retries were 4, even though we haven't explicitly set RetryAnalyzer in any of our test case. It automatically got added because of this code. Okay, so this is how you can also put RetryAnalyzer in all of the test cases of a suite by just adding annotation transformer like this in your XML file. So this is it for our video. I hope you have liked this, and if you found this helpful, please click on the like button, subscribe to our channel, and share it with the fellow testers. Thank you and have a nice day.